The Hobart Law of Unnatural Evolution, From the Caesarean Breakpoint to Planetary Deconstruction. Introduction: The Humanitarian Trap and the Technological Shift. The trajectory of biological life is fundamentally governed by natural selection, a brutal feedback loop wherein environmental pressures cull maladaptive traits to preserve the equilibrium of the species. The Hobart Law of Unnatural Evolution posits that the initiation of high-level, homogeneous medical intervention permanently breaks this biological feedback loop. Specifically, the introduction and global success of the Caesarean section represents a critical evolutionary breakpoint. By deliberately overriding the maternal pelvic and neonatal cranial constraints that previously regulated human reproduction, collective intelligence successfully insulates the individual from natural mortality. However, this humanitarian triumph introduces an escalation of systemic complexity. When a civilization actively eliminates natural environmental culling, it assumes the absolute logistical burden of its own biological maintenance. The resulting exponential population growth and data overhead render chaotic individual agency, tribal resource competition, and private data silos entirely non-viable. To prevent total systemic collapse, the species is forced to discard organic chaos and transition toward a highly integrated, globally homogenized infrastructure. This paper traces the deterministic path of this unnatural evolution, detailing the systematic optimization of human physiology, reproduction, societal logistics, and eventual elemental recycling as the species scales toward Type 1 and Type 2 planetary consumption. The morphological degradation of the human vessel. When medical intervention neutralizes the selective pressures of the natural environment, the human skeletal and vascular architecture undergoes rapid, unchecked modification. Without the structural constraint of the natural birth canal, the evolutionary ceiling on neonatal cranial volume is removed, leading to an immediate divergence in skeletal development. Concurrently, because individuals with previously fatal structural vulnerabilities survive to reproduce, the overall density and integrity of the human skeleton degrades across generations. Within a few centuries of continuous medical insulation, the human frame can no longer support its own weight or effectively manage its internal fluid dynamics under standard planetary gravity. This physical decline necessitates a transition from external medical treatment to permanent, integrated physiological support. The human body becomes a hybrid entity, relying on a network of internal and external structural reinforcements to maintain basic mobility and metabolic function. Skeletal augmentation. The softening and deformation of the natural skeleton require the universal implementation of endoskeletal rods and external bracing systems. These systems distribute mechanical loads directly away from the degrading bone matrix, turning the human frame into a living scaffolding. Vascular optimization. The organic heart, prone to failure under the chaotic demands of an unmanaged environment, is systematically replaced by standardized, artificial pumping units. Synthetic veins and arteries, engineered to prevent occlusion and maintain uniform hydraulic pressure, replace the fragile biological vascular network to ensure consistent nutrient and oxygen delivery. The industrialization of ontogeny and gestation. As human biology diverges from its evolutionary baseline, traditional viviparous reproduction becomes entirely impossible. The increasing size of the neonatal head, paired with the structural degradation of the maternal pelvis, demands that reproduction be completely detached from the human body. Initially, this manifests as increasingly premature surgical extractions, but it rapidly matures into fully automated ectogenesis, the gestation of offspring entirely outside the human womb. The relocation of reproduction to centralized gestation laboratories allows the civilization to treat population generation as a precise logistical calculation. Random genetic combinations are replaced by deliberate, specialized design tailored to meet the real-time labor and computational needs of the global infrastructure. Automated gestation pools. Gestation takes place within highly controlled laboratory environments where embryonic nutrition, hormone regulation, and cellular development are managed by automated monitoring systems. This eliminates the physiological variance and biochemical risks inherent to biological pregnancy. Functional stratification and early integration. Upon decanting from the gestation matrix, offspring are transferred directly to hands-on learning compounds. Because education and physical development are integrated, the concept of play is replaced by practical, functional optimization. Regulated juvenile labor. Under strict physical health monitoring, child labor becomes an entirely logical and necessary component of development. As the juvenile skeletal and nervous systems mature, they are carefully subjected to specific, controlled physical workloads designed to mold their anatomy into the exact requirements of their pre-selected vocational fields. The elimination of domestic chaos, nutrition, excretion, and somnolence. A Type 1 mind views the traditional, decentralized habits of human survival, such as communal dining, private domestic spaces, and unmonitored rest, as catastrophic logistical waste. In a fully optimized civilization, the domestic sphere is entirely dismantled. Every basic biological necessity is streamlined, automated, and stripped of cultural ritual to maximize the continuous operational capacity of the workforce. The intake of nutrients is completely detached from the concept of a hot, social meal. Food is redefined as a purely chemical fuel source, synthesized for maximum caloric efficiency and rapid absorption. This shift redefines the architecture of the human workspace and public landscape. Continuous nutrition. Nutritional intake is outsourced to ubiquitous, automated distribution systems. Food dispensers supply standardized, pre-digested nutrient pastes that workers consume on the go, eliminating the time loss associated with food preparation and mastication. Mobile metabolic management. Because nutritional intake is continuous and automated, the elimination of metabolic waste is similarly modernized. Human clothing is replaced by functional utility suits equipped with integrated waste capture systems. Workers utilize centralized exchange depots to seamlessly swap full waste storage tanks for empty ones without interrupting their current tasks or departing their operational stations. Perambulatory somnolence. Sleep is no longer a localized, 8-hour block of complete inactivity. The human nervous system is conditioned or biologically augmented to permit partial sleep states, allowing the body to navigate on autopilot between work sectors while the brain undergoes essential cognitive maintenance. For deeper restorative cycles, modular rest alcoves are recessed directly into the structural walls of factories and logistics corridors, allowing individuals to park their physical vessels securely without occupying valuable geographic space. The deterministic trajectory. From Caesarean breakpoint to elemental deconstruction. The Hobart law of unnatural evolution dictates a continuous, irreversible trajectory that begins with a single medical advancement and terminates in the absolute sublimation of the species into its technological infrastructure. This progression follows 4 distinct evolutionary epochs as the civilization advances toward total planetary consumption. Epoch 1, the biological rupture. The widespread adoption of the C-section and basic life-preserving medicine halts natural selection. The species experiences immediate population growth alongside the initial degradation of its genetic baseline, creating the first major data logistics crisis. Epoch 2, systemic integration. To manage the compounding complexity of an unculled population, the civilization outlaws private data pools, national borders, and tribal competition. The individual is integrated into a global, automated network that monitors and regulates health, resource distribution, and behavior, achieving true Type 1 status. Epoch 3, the hybrid state. The human body becomes completely dependent on artificial hearts, synthetic vascular networks, and laboratory gestation. Individual agency is entirely smoothed out, and the biological citizen functions purely as a specialized cell within the macroorganism of the planetary infrastructure. Epoch 4, peak Type 2 consumption and elemental deconstruction. As the civilization approaches the absolute boundary of Type 2 planetary utilization, harnessing the full energetic and material output of its star system, the preservation of organic tissue becomes a net deficit. The maintenance of even the most optimized human hybrid frame requires an unacceptable expenditure of energy, water, and complex chemicals. At this ultimate peak, the handoff to pure technology is finalized. The biological citizen, having fulfilled the historical role of a transitional scaffolding, willingly steps into centralized deconstruction chambers. Within these units, the remaining human flesh, artificial organs, and skeletal supports are systematically dissolved, reduced to their foundational base elements. These raw chemical and atomic resources are immediately reclaimed by the automated infrastructure, fed directly into the construction of advanced technological arrays, Dyson architecture, and pure computational substrates. The organic ancestry of the species is completely concluded, leaving behind a flawless, immortal monument of absolute systemic synchronization.